Well, we'll get started. We'll wait for others to join us. But hey, we want to thank everybody for joining us today. We want to welcome you to this conversation sponsored by Defined. And we're talking about from vision to reality, leading deeper learning and career connected systems. We're scheduled today to have panelists from Montgomery Public Schools in Alabama, Birmingham City Schools, and Santa Rosa County District Schools, talking about what this work looks like when it comes to reality. Again, thank you for being here. We want to thank our panelists for their leadership and willingness to engage in what we hope be a very productive conversation. And what we're talking about today is an important conversation, particularly at this time of the year when we're thinking about what next year's instruction looks like. What we're talking about is something that we honestly don't always unpack, and we're not clear about what that looks like. We talk about the wonderful things that take place, but we don't always talk about the pitfalls and the things we struggle to implement. So, what does it take to move from vision to reality within our school systems? Across districts, we're all working toward expanding STEM opportunities, building career connected learning systems, advancing deeper learning, strengthening partnerships with community and business. These are all the things that undergird what this work should be, how it should come to fruition in districts. But the truth is, this work is complex. It's uneven, it's fragile at times, and often it's harder to sustain than it is to start. And I think that's something that's really underrated throughout the process. So today we're not focusing on any polished answers. This is just an honest conversation and honest reflection with shared challenges and leadership insight. So to get us started, let's talk about who is in the room. I'd ask each of our panelists to briefly share what your role is, obviously your name, one priority your district is focused on right now, and one challenge you're actively working through. We can keep each introduction to about 45 seconds so we can get to our conversation. We can start on that now. So who's here with us that may want to jump in first?
I'll jump in. I am Michael Thorpe. I am the Assistant Superintendent of Curriculum Instruction uh, and Assessment, or CIA, in the Santa Rosa County School System in Northwest Florida. Right now, we are working a lot with student-led academic teaming, an acronym of SLAT. Not really excited about that acronym, but student-led academic teaming. And a challenge that we are really working on right now is connecting our work of SLAT with our work in Define. That's so teachers don't see it as separate work, because we really envision that as a combination of work. But also, I think the biggest struggle in Florida right now, and certainly for our school district, like many others, is the movement to using state funds to fund those who do not take part in public education. And
Mhm.
so our budgets are extremely tight. Uh, and we have lost enrollment, not to the degree of some of the other districts in Florida. We're not closing any schools. Matter of fact, we're opening schools, but the budget crisis is a true challenge in Florida.
I think across the country, budgets have become more and more part of the conversation that we need to
Sure.
struggle through in order to be successful. And it gets trickier and trickier by the day. So I admire the work that everybody's doing in districts and how you're navigating that space. Um, Kudos. That's really all I can say in that regard. Sydney, you just jumped on. Sydney, you want to tell us where you're from, what you do, and we had a couple of questions for you to answer in regard to that. Let me know what you if you got those questions.
Yes, so I got the questions. And so, yeah, I'm Sydney Hampton-Sneed. I'm the Education and Technology Coordinator here for Montgomery Public Schools. So we oversee all the apps and everything that we do and training for our teachers, as well as the virtual programming here. So what we're trying to do, I guess, with Defined is have our students do more project-based learning, and not just for the sake of saying we completed a project, but to give them those real life applications so they can see and feel and know and be part of their education and understand those standards better.
Outstanding. Just spoke with Michael about some of the struggles budgetarily that he's confronting. You want to give any insight to that?
Well, that's us here too. We're losing almost 1,000 kids a year in enrollment.
Wow.
and it's crazy. So we're trying to do some innovative things to get our students back. We're trying to different programming. We're starting a new cyber academy, trying to get students in, having statewide open enrollment for that, allowing students from other districts to come in and enroll in that magnet program. We're also doing the same thing with our virtual programming, trying to pull in students back in. We just need to get our kids back. Where are they going? We know that they're leaving us to go to other virtual programs, so let's be that virtual program that they can have. But we've got to do innovative things that draw them here and show that we're different. We're engaging with the arts. We're increasing that programming. Anything that we can do that would give them some kind of draw and make them want to be here in Montgomery Public Schools, that's what we're trying to do now, just to get those students back.
Sydney, I'm so glad you said that because Dr. Brown, it makes me think of in Florida, of course, there's the scholarship program where families can apply for and get scholarships, and literally they get a scholarship that is equivalent to the FTE dollars we would get if that student were attending our school. So it's roughly $9,200 per student. A gen ed student that they receive, and it's not income based at all. It's basically based on you just apply and you get it pretty much. But what the state of Florida does allow is us to have a marketplace of service offerings. So what we have done, Sydney, is we have built a marketplace where we are offering opportunities. So we might have a student who is homeschooled or using their scholarship at home or in a private school for some other activity, but I can offer a course or it's referred to as an instructional service. Maybe it's even a diagnostic that you can, a parent can come up here and pay us to do the diagnostic. So literally looking for income streams, right? For this money that is not normally coming into the school district. It is a piece of what we're doing. We actually have opened an innovation center where a lot of our defined work will be the kind of the epicenter of a lot of our defined work. We had a meeting with Defined yesterday in the innovation center, and we've had about 15 families that have come by and asking if they can purchase a service inside of our innovation center, which would be one of our defined projects that we do with students. So we are looking forward to other income streams. Let me put it that way. But we have an avenue for that in our marketplace that we can work with the state of Florida on.
And that's something we also are looking into here as being a CHUSAC provider, because the new laws here that provide something similar to Florida, like Florida has, trying to find other things that we can offer here that the students, we can get them in and
Sure.
get some of that money back from our students.
Yep.
Yeah, that trend is taking place all over the place. And that's something we need to continue to confront while at the same time marketing our districts to make sure they understand what we offer and all those things that they supposedly get elsewhere. Districts are offering that work.
Right.
It just looks different. And I think it's important that we highlight and market that information so people are aware. I'm not seeing any other panelists come in yet, but as they do, I'll introduce them. We're going to get on with our conversation. What we just discussed is a great segue to where we need to be now. We're talking about STEM and career-connected learning, making learning come to life in classrooms, how it connects to real-life context. So we're going to start that as our place of discussion. This area is something that's seen a ton of momentum over the course of the last couple of years on a national level, but there's a lot of variation that shows up in how that demonstrates itself in practice. And that's something that we need to amp up a bit. So I'll start with this question. How is your district moving beyond isolated programs to create real system-wide access to STEM and career-connected learning?
Well, I'll
Dr.
jump
Pelton
in.
joined us as well. So Angie, before we get to that question, I'll let you introduce yourself real quickly, and then we'll jump into the conversations.
Okay. Hi, I apologize for being late. Technical difficulties, probably a user error, but anyway, I'm Angie Pelton. I'm the Professional Development Director for Montgomery Public Schools in Montgomery, Alabama.
Thank you so much. So career-connected learning, who wants to jump in on that first?
I can jump in. So I will just say that, that certainly is a challenge, I would say, for all of us, and certainly here in Santa Rosa County. We have a technical college here in our county that is part of our school system, Laughlin Technical College. But we only have, and it's certainly for adults, but it's also a dual enrollment type site for our high school students as well. But the expense of the equipment that we have at this technical college is very difficult for us to replicate that at all of our schools around the school district. So one thing that we've tried to do in the technical world, the A+ certification, networking, cybersecurity, is that we've employed what we refer to as broadcast opportunities. So we will teach from the technical college, and at the high schools we'll have receiving rooms, and we can duplicate a good bit of the equipment between the two, but we don't have enough instructors, right, that can teach between all of these schools. So we'll have an instructor at the college teaching out to the multiple schools, to the broadcast, two-way audio video type situation. And then we will actually bring the receiving schools into the college lab a few times through the years. And in the receiving schools, we will have an ed support employee that's trained, but maybe not an expert in that field, that is in the classroom with the students on the receiving end. That's allowed us to strengthen that footprint across the school district. Our district, the south end of the district is sitting on the Gulf. The north end of the district is sitting on the Alabama state line. We're up in the panhandle of Florida, so it's geographically a pretty large district. So it's difficult to bus those kids to the college on a daily basis, but we can do special programs and certainly use the broadcast technology that's letting us spread across this large geographic area, and spread limited resources, I would say. That's one strategy.
That's a great example. I think it's also that's also an example for some rural districts that may not have access to what may be available to someone who's a little closer to an urban situation. As an idea, they can also pilot and use in their particular district as well. Great example. Thank you.
And for us, I think our biggest thing is moving from like random acts of STEM, where we have robotics clubs and different things like that, to embedding it within our curriculum and our pacing guides. It is embedded in that. It is, you will do a project every 9 weeks, and it's going to be based around this, and that's going to be one of your major grades. But it's more than just grades. It's embedding it in the classroom to get those students hands-on and learning. And I think that's for us, especially looking at social studies and science curriculum. How can we do that to enhance that, especially in our elementary? The science and social studies, with all the reading and math initiatives here in Alabama, it's often overlooked. And that's a way that we can get that science and social studies in those elementary classrooms by really working in this area.
And I don't know if Sydney mentioned about our themed academies and how we're trying. Did you mention that already, Sydney?
I haven't.
Okay, sorry, I didn't want to speak twice, but like we are doing themed academies. So we have like instructional DNA where they're speaking the same languages throughout, from elementary to middle to high. So we're really pushing in on that. And we are also in with like Wilson Elementary and Blunt Elementary. We just had professional development on Friday, and we brought in community partners because we want, we had the PTA president there. Like, we were trying to help the teachers see this as more than just something to teach. It's about students learning and becoming global citizens, helping them see the standards connection to community. And that was really a powerful moment. The teachers were really, they'd already made contacts with other people before we even left the professional development. But one of the projects was a planetarium designer. So that's what they were doing. They'd already made contact with the person in Montgomery. They wanted to bring them in to judge their project on, the galaxies and all these things. It was really kind of cool to see the excitement. And I think the motivation, the excitement also, that's what transforms your district.
Yeah, Dr. Brown, both Sydney and Angelia always make me start thinking of other things because they're so fantastic. But I would like to share, if I could, and this is really that first bullet question, but maybe also related to the second bullet question. I'm looking at a screen I have right here, and some work that we've been able to do with Define is make something called custom collections. And our custom collections tie in with our pacing guide. So as I just look up here on the screen, I'm looking at Santa Rosa science projects. So across 15 courses, we have tied in 136 projects that align with our pacing guide, Florida state standards, and the defined available projects. I'm looking at across 10 math courses, 173 projects, across 6 ELA courses, 168 projects across 4 courses in social studies, 63 projects, and across 4 courses in computer science, 51 projects. Literally, our teachers can click on this panel. It has our pacing guides and embedded projects and tasks from Define, which are just incredible. And Angelia, you made me think about a conversation we had yesterday that next year our real focus needs to be not on the result of the project, but on the process of getting to whatever that thing is you're building, right? You're making, you're writing. We need to really help our teachers see that process instead of the resulting project.
Right. And I think so many times we get in this mindset of just doing a task for the sake of this is a standard, this is what we're doing, do the task. And there's no connection to the piece. For example, if we're doing instructional walkthroughs and we are checking boxes, do they have the standard up? Do they have the learning target? But if students don't understand the words in the standard or the learning target, there's no connection there. Like what are we doing to direct them to understand that this is all part of the metacognition, thinking about how to learn, what we need to know, accessing prior knowledge. Like you have to start there. So when you're constantly referring back to the learning target, they're actually using that as part of their formative assessment to see where they are. They're becoming agents of their own learning. And that's what we're trying to do, because ultimately at the end, it's about them, becoming a productive member of society.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's not what standard did you learn in 3rd grade? Like it's how you're doing. What are you doing with those critical thinking skills and those problem solving skills, which comes from the project-based learning. Not so much a page in a textbook.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, each of you's named something that's really, really important. One, going back to the whole notion of what we talked about, projects being something that's done as a checkbox. It's not about the end product. It is about the process. And it shouldn't be, sure, we should celebrate them, but we shouldn't be using projects as a moment just to celebrate. Let's talk about what they've learned in the process. And then connecting to your business partners is such a crucial piece of this, and making those experiences real and authentic so that they show up in real life. You can then get your business partners in your schools, and now you're talking about real ownership of the project, not just by schools, but by the community. And who knows, there may be some funds that come along with that to help support the work. And I think those are partnerships that get undervalued and underestimated throughout the country in terms of when we're talking about what this learning should look like. So kudos for you guys doing that stuff. Um, you've mentioned some of the gaps that exist. Let's talk a little more specifically about where you've seen some big gaps between what you intended to have happen and what actually took place in classrooms.
I think a lot of our gap is when teachers first of all, if their behavior is not changing or students aren't learning, the professional development wasn't effective. So they just warmed a seat. I think we have to change our mentality to learning something we get to do, and the teachers, so many times we've made it where it's a punishment. You don't know this, you need to go to this PD. That's making it, like writing sentences 500 times because you didn't do something. What does that teach us? To hate writing. So that's kind of the same mentality that we put teachers under with professional development. So I think what's so valuable is changing that mindset, that fixed mindset, to PD out of compliance, but actually experiencing the project-based learning as a learner, but also stepping back and now, how do I facilitate this learning? And most of the time, teachers are very reflective to say, oh, I didn't know that, and that they need to deepen their content, but then they're more led to do it because they're not being forced, or they're not being scrutinized, or why don't you know this, or why are you teaching this? But they're open. They feel safe saying, oh, and asking questions that they might not have asked. So I think it's about creating that safe space too when you're helping teachers learn about project-based learning, because ultimately they are the single most important school-based factor that's going to determine student success.
I couldn't agree more, and I'm seeing a lot of comments in the chat there that folks are saying they agree, and folks are saying, yeah, don't force PD on our teachers. And I think that if we look at our PD and we look at any initiative, or I'd rather use the term transformation, that we bring into our school district, if it doesn't gain momentum, sometimes maybe there's a problem with that transformation idea. Maybe sometimes there's a problem with that particular PD, no different than a teacher teaching in a classroom, and the students on the assessment for that unit, they don't do well. The idea of a teacher looking within and going, okay, where did I miss the mark?
Right.
Maybe we need to do that as districts when a PD has to be forced, or listen, we want you need to come be a part of this. Certainly there are times to me that going to someone and going, look, I'd love for you to be our champion for project-based learning, and that gives some folks some identity, but forcing certainly is not a good idea. In my opinion, I don't know if you guys have ever seen the video of the guy that starts dancing at the concert, but the story isn't about that first guy that dances. It's about that first follower that jumps up and dances, and then a lot of other folks get up, and before long the whole crowd is dancing. So who's that second one to jump in? Who's that third one to jump in? And I think sometimes we focus on the first round. But I don't know if we ever bring that next group in, the second or the third group in, and put as much attention on them as well.
Well, and energy is contagious. You can walk in a room and know when you're not wanted. You can walk in a space and know you're not safe, and that you are to just sit there, be quiet, do the church nod, yes, 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 and then walk out and not have a clue what was said. Like, we've all done that. I mean, not so much in church. I'm not going to say that. Maybe I have. But I'm saying we're just doing this out of, I'm just here. Yeah, I'm here. Everything's great. I got this and this and this. I'm making this list of things in my head of all the things I need to do besides be here. And so I think it's about helping teachers be fully present, spreading that positive energy, first of all, where they feel valued, they matter, their voice, what they bring, their expertise. Though we're not, just because we're providing the professional development does not mean we're the holders of all knowledge. Of course, we want to make sure we are there, but it's about bringing it out in them and getting them to say it, because when they're talking, they're learning. If I'm doing all the talking, I'm doing all the learning. So
Yeah.
getting them, asking them facilitating the learning in a way that it's being modeled for them too, not just reading something on slides like that. I'm the worst person, I'll just tell you, to sit through a PD where someone's reading to me. I'm like, could we not have sent that in an email?
Right.
You
Right.
know,
That's a great point. And I think it's important that we highlight. I want to use that point and also capture the importance of what that looks like when you get in your classroom and what your students experience on a daily basis. We talked about connectedness and belonging. That's exactly what we want to see in our classrooms as
Mhm.
well. So while we have those feelings as adults when we walk into rooms, we should all be aware that our kids have those same feelings, and it's our job to make sure we can mitigate those. Great points. The two other questions I want to get into on this section before we move on to part two. One, I want to get a sense of how are you going about ensuring that these opportunities are reaching all students, not just those who are already engaged or high performing? And then secondly, if you can talk a little more about your partnership with Define and how this helps structure and scale the work that may not be happening otherwise.
Yeah, I'll start out. I'll lean back to our work with the combining the pacing guides and our work with Define through the custom collections. That has been huge. We have required pacing guides, and of course, the Define tasks are built within them. But also, we started on this journey a couple of years ago, where each school of our 35 schools, they identify four. Larger schools have more than four teachers that are taking part in the defined learning. But then part of the defined leadership that we're teaching these teachers through, they go back to their particular schools and they deliver PD usually through a PLC structure to their schools, and it might start as simple as bring along a buddy, bring along a department, a presentation campus wide. But then we go to sort of the next step of that is where we are now is we open our classrooms. We open our classrooms where this work is occurring to other teachers in the school to come watch, other teachers across the district to come watch. Hey, there's a second grade. I'm a second grade teacher, and there's another second grade teacher across the district. So we open up by giving each school funds to get a substitute, more than one substitute, and let teachers go and watch lessons in action, watch the work as it happens. So hopefully, our philosophy is you always hear folks say, "Well, I need to see what it looks like," and so that's really the next stage of what we really do. And another thing that we really have started talking about is even though this is problem-based learning, what we constantly talk about in our world is ways of engaging students. A deeper engagement with students. So really, our district-wide message from the superintendent through everyone is we want more hands-on activity because we think the mind turns on when the hands turn on. When they're hands-on, their mind's on, right? And so that's kind of a little phrase that we're trying to use really across the district. And then again, combine this work with student-led academic teaming, which sets up perfectly. Student-led academic teaming is our model of instruction across the entire district. And the work with Defined, we plug in as the content that we need to carry out student-led academic teaming. But it's from the superintendent through every principal. And I'll also say we train principals. We don't leave them out. So we're constantly every month doing some type of training at our leadership meetings with our principals and our assistant principals, because if they're doing observations, they need to understand what they're seeing as well. So that's just a few strategies that we've used.
We have also started using the project-based learning, like helping our teachers see this is tiered instruction, meaning tier one instruction, this is universal design of learning. We're focusing on differentiating. We're focusing on accessing all learners. We're not teaching to the middle, but also too, when you're thinking about project-based learning, most people think they're just group or collaborative, but it's also the perfect time to do the tier two or the targeted support, because I'm working on a specific concept or skill within the project-based learning in a small group with my teacher. Like, that's my perfect grouping time too, because my other students are still working at grade level. It maybe the content's a little different, or the process or the product, but we're all doing the same, and the teacher can work, spend that extra time in tier two with the students who need it also. So I think that's a great way to be more hands-on, minds-on kind of thing too, just seeing it as all, the tier one and tier two.
And Angie, I saw a question in the question and answer thing that was kind of along these same lines. They were asking about, with the pressure on test scores, how do we take advantage of these opportunities, and how do we balance the test score pressure with these amazing programs? Well, a lot of it is board kids don't test well. They don't.
Right.
So, I mean, if we're engaging our students, and then with this, we're getting to those higher level depth of knowledge. We're on DOK level 3 because they are problem solving. They are getting to those multi-step processes that they don't get to necessarily every day in tier one instructions with worksheets. And they are they're part of their learning every day. And that is how we increase test scores, by allowing our students to be problem solvers and figure out problems and be able to think in that way where they can create that change for themselves.
So Sid, just yesterday, I walked 3 middle school classrooms, 4 elementary classrooms, and 2 high school classrooms, where there were defined lessons occurring, and there were and they were employing our model of instruction strategies as well. And so I'm in the first classroom with a young lady who was teaching 7th graders, and I taught her when she was in high school here in Santa Rosa County. And so Celia, I was watching her class, and Celia said, "Mr. Thorpe, there's a kid in here that just was released from a very significant behavioral unit last week. Can you tell which one he is?" And I looked around, and kids were engaged, and I would go to each group, and I had no idea who this kid was. She told me as I was leaving. I went, "Holy smokes, he was plugged in as deep as every other kid was plugged in." And so it almost like leveled the playing field for this student. And so when I went to each class after that, I was with a group of folks. I said, we know that in each one of these classes we have special needs students. See if we can pick them out. And listen, I could not. I went to every single classroom I went to. They were just students, right? Because they were engaged, and I look at it as leveling the platform, giving every one of these students a voice, and sometimes if the teacher identified them as I was leaving, I would go, "Okay, now I see maybe their partner were helping them a little bit," but many times it was like, "Wow, they were leading the group." So I think this work also, when we think about testing, it probably, like you say, Sydney, engages those that would not engage in a traditional format, right?
It's something.
I
Something
agree.
that,
It gives them
oh, sorry, go ahead.
I agree. It gives them their why behind it. It gives them the ownership of their learning. And I think that's big for those students who typically aren't engaged otherwise.
And I have to speak to we have a huge EL population. What is amazing about Define is we can actually translate the projects or what's ever on their site to Spanish, which is huge here, and that the kids feel a little more comfortable, engaged, and they don't feel pointed out, but I think that's a powerful piece too, because you're being inclusive, and that when kids feel like they belong, we go back to that again, the same thing. When you're included and you feel like you're contributing something and you understand, like you're powerful. Like that is power. That is knowledge.
I think something that we need to highlight, I talk about this all the time, and often we want to raise test scores. We all want to do that. However, the purpose for learning is to actually attain knowledge and information so you can use it for life. And if we're teaching from that scope or from that lens, those test scores are going to take care of themselves. We're not teaching simply to have kids regurgitate things on a test, but to actually experience and learn and use those skills and then translate them to a test. So that's the transition we need to make in education in general, and fight back against some of that quote accountability nonsense that we have to deal with. No shade to test scores, because I get that. I get the purpose of them. But they shouldn't consume all of our time so we aren't actually able to teach the material that's supposed to be learned for the test. It makes no sense, but here we are. There's quite a bit of conversation around test scores. Rob's going to be giving some great questions that we're going to follow up with in a bit. Let's shift to the second part of our conversation. I want to get into deeper learning a little bit. This is something that many districts are trying to prioritize, but often in ways that are not yet fully aligned with the entire system. So let's talk about what that looks like. How do you define deeper learning in your district, and how consistent is that definition across schools and classrooms?
Well, to be transparent, we have pockets of excellence. I wouldn't say that it's across the district, but that is our vision. That is our goal. If we can see it, we can get there. So that's the mentality we're taking. We see it, we're going to get there. But I think what we see as deeper learning is when you have the math teacher and the science teacher and the English teacher working on the same project and taking it and sharing the project. They're doing it together in each class. I mean, there's that connective piece. They're actually having conversations that might not have happened, that, they would have had it with their math department or English department. But no, we have different subject areas having conversations, those collaborative conversations that turn to networks, that turn to friendships, that's when it becomes personal, and teachers want to know more and do better. And when the students see that connective piece and they see how much teachers are dedicated to their learning, like I want to do this not only for myself, but I see my teachers' excitement that spreads to me. If that makes sense.
No, I think that makes sense, and I think we see it when kind of on down that same path, when we see teachers become teacher leaders amongst their peers, right? And they take their learning, which is our model of what we're doing with Define. They take their learning, the core four as we refer to them, take that back to their schools and deliver to their schools. The classrooms we walked yesterday, only I think two of the teachers that we visited, out of all the number of teachers we visited yesterday, were actually in the core group of defined teachers that we've been training. So, so I think we witnessed some of that yesterday. Now, is that across 2,000 teachers in our district? Absolutely not. No, we're not there. But we're a lot further than we were 2 years ago. Let me put it that way.
And I think
Michael,
that's the work.
I'm sorry, Dr. Brown. Excuse me. I'm so sorry.
No, that's okay. Just that is the work. You spread it. The work is you're consistently chasing perfection, knowing that you'll never actually get there. And that's okay. The idea is to get mass support behind that work. And because you're going to have people who come in and out of doors, you can consistently be training and talking about that work. And to get it 100% across the entire district is an incredible amount of work and a heavy lift, but it's important to have those conversations so people are aware. So certainly don't downplay the work you've done. It's remarkable and it continues. You were going to say, Angie?
I forgot. Sorry. Sorry.
It's not like it's a busy time of year. It's okay.
No, I was just into what you were saying and it slipped my mind. I'm sorry.
So I also think deeper learning instructional shifts are also about the expectations of what teachers are having. I was in just a general 10th grade English classroom, ELA classroom yesterday, and I'm a former high school principal, and so I know what 10th graders are like in at the end of April
Mhm.
of a school year, and these students they were doing an analysis of Fahrenheit 451, and they were working in teams. And the teacher was like standing off to the side, talking to me and the group I was with. And I just took a moment to look around the room, and whether it was a group of four boys or a combination of boys and girls or four girls in a group, there were eight groups in the room. Um, they were so on task, they were so involved in this analysis. And so I sort of made my way around the room to listen to the side conversations. And I did not pick up a side conversation. I picked them up digging through the text, looking for evidence. So I went back to the teacher and I said, now, is this an honors class? She said, no, this is 10th grade English, regular 10th grade English. So, and I told her, I said, and she knew I'd been a high school principal for a while. And I said, this is amazing. I don't know if I've ever seen this in a regular 10th grade English class. And she said, it's just my expectation. So I think when we talk about expectations from teachers, raising that to a new level, um, that's where we see deeper learning and instructional shifts. And one other quick story, I don't know if it relates to this, but I think you'll get a kick out of it. So I'm in a fourth grade room yesterday. May have been a third grade room. No, I think it was fourth grade room. And the students they were working on the defined lesson where you're writing a letter to the city council about
Mhm.
putting more trees in the city.
Uh,
Except the
Mhm.
slant was they were going to write a letter to the principal to have more trees on campus. Well, I'm the
Mhm.
superintendent, and the superintendent were with me. We were in the room, so the teacher said, we want you to write the letter to Dr. Barber and Mr. Thorpe, and then they were going to have to present it to us in the room. And so I was watching them work on each group work on this, and one of the girls that was in one of her little group, she said she leaned over to her partner and said maybe we need to become arborists so we know what we're doing. And the little girl beside her said, maybe we need to hire an arborist. And I just thought that was really so cool that they were thinking that. So I don't know, that probably doesn't have anything to do with this, but a little bit of a connection to a career there for sure.
Well, I think it does. The fact they're even thinking that way, because who know what third or fourth grader do we know on a typical day can tell you how to expand access for kids in the school district? And there's an example right there. She or he discovered a mechanism that would allow us to get more access, to increase our capacity as a school district that would make us better. So I think it certainly fits the conversation. No question about that. You also said something that's so important. Expectation. When we raise
Mhm.
expectations, kids will rise to those expectations. If you leave your floor as your expectation, kids will lay on the floor. If you want them to ascend to the ceiling, you have to raise that level of expectation. And that's what this work is about. You can't have deeper learning without an expectation that precedes any of that. If I don't expect much from you, I won't get much from you. It's just that simple. So thank you for calling that out. Um, we're having a great
I
conversation. I'm gonna shift to
I
the.
think
Oh, go ahead.
too about expectations. Like we do have to have high expectations and hold them to them, but we also have to set them up for success.
With support. Exactly.
Yes. Yes.
Great conversation. I'm going to shift to the next section. We're going to talk about leadership and how systems and partnerships help to sustain that work, because those things are important in order to make this become a reality in schools and in school districts. What leadership moves in your district have been most critical in sustaining the work in your district? And if you could talk a little more about, we talked about this a little bit, how are you building principal capacity to lead that work, not just comply with it and check the box?
So for us, it's a constantly revisiting this work. When I mentioned our monthly meetup, so we meet with our principals in a conference style event every other month. The months we do not meet with our principals, we meet with our assistant principals. So that's every other month during the school year. Um, I put together the content for our principal meetings. We have another assistant superintendent who puts together the content for the assistant principal meetings / conferences. So at every monthly meetup, conference style event, there'll be a segment around either defined or student-led academic teaming or a combination of both, as a session that we do. We call it our instructional leadership session. In addition to that, we have partnered every principal up with another principal, at least one, where they can visit schools, I go visit school A comes and visits my school, and we do classroom walkthroughs together. And we're looking for aspects of student-led academic teaming, but also the incorporation of project-based learning into what's going on during the school day. That's a every other week activity that we just let our partners work out. We have a group of schools. It's now 15 schools that have a district level partner as well. So when the principals team up, I have two schools that I go out and do walkthroughs with as well. It takes a tremendous amount of time. But the principals see that district leadership has skin in the game. We're side by side with them, walking classrooms and coming out of the classrooms and having discussions. Now, these are not evaluation related visits. These are just visits into the classroom for us to learn, for us as leaders to learn and get better at our craft. So for us, that is really what has helped the leadership move there. And the learning here, Dr. Barber, the superintendent of schools, she leads this work. So she is literally, this comes as high from the top as it can come. I mean, she actually teaches the instructional leadership sessions.
What a great model. You mentioned evaluation. I think about other professions. You don't see people consistently walking through other industries and evaluating people who are leading that work. They may go to observe, to learn some things, maybe even to perhaps give some tips, but it isn't always about evaluation. It's about learning, and you're shifting to a mentality that allows that to take place, and is not this threatening evaluative tool that is looming on everyone's shoulders as you come in. Great job.
Yeah, I'm telling you, it is it's sort of like we were talking priorities a few minutes ago. It is literally comes down to our priorities because I can promise you my parent phone calls don't slow down when I'm out in schools. And I know for those principals and those assistant principals, their discipline situations or other emergencies aren't slowing down when they're walking around the school. They certainly are engaged in the work we're doing, but I imagine I would have been and am. Part of my brain is thinking about the other work that's piling up. So it's a little bit of a sacrifice for our folks to do it, but they believe in the work. And we've seen some results as a result of this work. I saw a question about test scores and data. Our graduation rate is the highest we've ever had in our history. Our test scores are not the top of the state of Florida, but we are in the top 10 in the state of Florida in every single category. So we feel good about that. There's some work for us to do in the area of algebra, without a doubt. But we're not perfect, but we're chasing better constantly.
I think some powerful things that happened is actually when the principal participated with the teachers as in the professional development, and the assistant principal also was with another group, and they were laughing, they were enjoying each other, they were so competitive, just that right there, they see the principal, yes, they do evaluate, but they saw them more as a partner and as a supporter. And I think that that's powerful too, because you see a different side of them and you see them, helping you, but also participating. And I just think there's something powerful when people enjoy each other's company. I mean, I'm not saying like you have to be friends and go, but you're laughing, you're talking about the learning and you're enjoying your time with each other. And I think that's what's made a difference in some of our schools.
So what did that look like? We've never done that, so I'm interested in what that looked like.
So well, for example, the one on Friday, the principal sat at one table and the other. And the thing is, you noticed that when the principal sat down, the assistant principal sat down, at first it was kind of everybody was quiet. No one said, everybody was kind of like scared to say. And then, after Heather started getting them going and we started talking about connection and then they actually engaged in the project. They were assigning roles, and they're like, the principal does that. I mean, it was like she was a learner too. And
Wow.
and I think
Yeah.
that's just seeing her as a learner, not so much as authoritarian type, but a learner.
Well, that
Because
speaks to culture.
yeah,
That's how you begin to change culture from one that's not a hierarchy, so to speak, and more so of a
right,
team.
right.
And I think it's a lot different when we pull out just principals for training. I think they get something out of it, but when they're learning with their staff, they make the connections with their staff to learn with them and see
I
what
love
it looks like. And
I
they're
love
all on the same page. So we
Mhm.
had an asynchronous day. And what Angie was referring to is we have 2 elementary schools who are going on an IB pathway now. So they're feeder patterns, they're going to do their IB thing. But we thought this was a perfect opportunity to introduce them into some things that could help them along their IB pathway. And so that's why we had Defined come in and do this training to prepare them for next year and as we close out this school year. So I think that was some things that we wanted to do with those particular schools, because at this point in time, it's the end of the school year, we're wrapping up. But at this same time, they can go ahead and do a project. Let's finish out the year on a high note and lead us into summer and know where we're going next year as we move forward down our path. And I think it was big to see those principals engaged with the learning with the teachers.
And we're engaged in the learning. We sit down, we're part of groups. We're part of the learning. We want them to see us in a different light too. We want, so we're in group work. We're talking about things, and we're forming relationships with them too, which is great in the end, because then they know they can trust us. They can come to us. They're not threatened. They're happy when we're coming to the classroom. They want more. They're actually asking us, when can we have the next PD? When are we focusing on this? I'm like, it's coming. I got you. Like we have a timeline set out. Like the next one, we're really focusing in on looking at proficiency scales, like the standards, and what specific concept and skill, how we can address that more strategically in our project-based learning. So, I mean, their wheels are just spinning, which we're so excited about that.
I really love that. I really do.
I'd be remiss if I didn't go back to our partnership with school districts and the things we're doing to assist and be a partner for you. Can you talk really quickly in about 30 seconds or so? How has Defined helped support coherence, visibility, sustainability within your system, and how's that work gone about evolving?
I can't say enough like positive things, because first of all, like I might just have a thought and I'm like, here, just hear me out. And then the next thing I know, they come back with, yes, we can do that. Yes, we can take proficiency scales and include this. Yes, we can, get more focus on the community connection piece and the standards. And we meet weekly to, like we keep our eye on the prize, because barriers will always come. It's called life. Things don't always work like we expect them or would like them to. But I think just our strategic partnership and staying focused on our goals, and there are some days I'm just like, ah, but they encourage, they give other districts like, hey, this is working for this district. Have you thought of this? And I'm like, well, no, but yes, and they connect us, just something like what we're doing here today. They connect us to other people to help us network, but also they bring quality professional learning here, and help us. Because I'm real big about, you got to bring quality, because if it's associated with the professional development department here, it's a standard, it's an expectation, and they never ever fail to deliver that. And they actually have virtual sessions and have our teachers reaching out to them, and they're answering them and helping them. So I can't say enough about the great partnership, and they're real. It's a real partner. You don't feel like, oh, you paid this company something and then bye-bye. No, it's a weekly and we know each other. I mean, we actually know about their lives. Like it's more than just a partnership. It's a friendship and partnership that has emerged from this.
In the last 48 hours, when I mentioned walking these classrooms with the superintendent, what I didn't mention is I was also with a group with Defined, and they wanted to walk the classrooms for this reason. They wanted to understand some of the work we had going on with student-led academic teaming, so that this year or next school year's rounds of training on Defined, on PBL, could better interact with the model of instruction that we are using in Santa Rosa County. So they walked every classroom with us that we walked, and then after that, we spent about 4 hours together planning for next year. But in addition to that, they're true partnership. It was a 4 hour discussion, not about, okay, how are you going to use PBL? How are you going to do these projects? How are you going to do those projects? It was about, Dr. Barber, what is your vision? Okay, how can we plug in to help you make your vision happen? And we basically have the whole year for next year planned out. But I'm going to go back to the first year of our partnership. We cannot afford to bring every teacher in we wanted to bring in. Our core groups that we did train that went back to their schools were asking for some help from Defined. Well, it was, how do we plug Defined out into 35 schools like right now? So what Defined helped us come up with is this plan to deliver just-in-time PD, no matter where you were, no matter if you were just learning about Defined, you were deep into it, you just needed to know how to do a few things, or you wanted to just learn a ton about it. And a team came to our district, and we set up. It was the first day back after the winter break. We had a teacher work day that day, and they deployed folks to all of our schools throughout the day. Each person, I think, went to 3 different schools, each Defined person on that day. So, but they were across the entire district. So it was a district-wide opportunities for every single teacher in the district to plug in with a Defined, a person from Defined. But that was a monumental task. And they helped come up with the plan. They said, hey, what if we do it this way? What if we do it that way? It was incredible. And so to see what how much they will move heaven and earth to help your vision occur for your school district is really tremendous. It's I work with a lot of different vendors, but Defined absolutely is a deeper partner than probably we've ever had. So I certainly appreciate them in all ways, and not just because I'm on this Zoom with the Defined logo up here in front of me.
We know you wouldn't be here if you didn't believe in it. We
Yeah.
appreciate you being here. Typically, what we do at this point is shift to some audience questions really quick. If there are any, can you bring them to our attention very quickly? Because we're running out of time and I want to make sure I respect everybody's schedules. Um, if anything pops up or you have questions that may come after the webinar, feel free to send those to us via an email to our company. We can certainly, or to school districts themselves personally, we can certainly entertain those. We already know we're going to follow up on one today. I'm not seeing anything pop in there right now. So what I'm going to do is close this out. So as I do so, I want to close with this. There's been one thread. Well, there've been a ton of threads, but there's been one that has stayed in my mind throughout this entire conversation. And it's this work doesn't just succeed because of isolated innovation. It succeeds because systems make it possible and leaders make it consistent. That means everyone has a stake in the game. Everybody understands what is important in terms of what instruction needs to look like for kids and how we're going to transform education as we go forward in this world that is incredibly unpredictable and seems to change by the day. We're preparing kids for that. So therefore, we have to use the tools at our disposal to make those things come alive. So I appreciate our partners. And Michael, thank you in Santa Rosa, Sydney and Angie in Montgomery. Thank you so much for joining us today. We appreciate you as always. We look forward to talking to you again soon. Again, I'm Melvin Brown. I am our superintendent in residence here at Defined. I want to thank you, our panelists, and for our attendees for engaging with us today. And we wish everyone to have a fantastic end of the day and a fantastic end of the school year because it's almost here. Thank you again, everyone.
Awesome. Thank you,
Thank
Dr.
you.
Brown. And anybody that wants to send email, please send them. I see a couple in there. Shamia, great seeing your name in here. Looking forward to
Yes.
talking to you soon.
Please reach out to us if you need us. We're an email away.
Thank you so much. Everyone take care.